Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Narcissism Decoder. I'm Dr. Anthony Mazzella. On this channel, we go beyond labels and symptoms to explore the inner, often unconscious, emotional world behind narcissistic and related personality patterns. In these short clips from the full podcast, you'll get a clear, compassionate, psychodynamic insight into behavior. Whether intense feelings live in you or you're watching them in someone you care about, the goal is the same: to understand what's really going on with the emotions and approach them with perspective, compassion, and room to breathe. Here's a short clip from the podcast that highlights what this looks like in real life. That was going to be one of my final questions: is how does one find healing, right? And you said this therapist, who was very helpful and valuable, said, when you're looking for that hug, right, that you have to hug yourself. But that's like, what does that mean? Like, what could that look like? Just, I'm thinking the listeners who are hearing this and they're like, yes, this could be really a valuable lesson, but what does a hugging yourself actually mean?
Yeah, and I've had to practice it multiple times. And because here's the other piece so let me tell you, because people are like, well, how did she get out? How did she get out? She didn't leave him. So it got worse. My story got worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a call while we're on vacation that my youngest son called me about my oldest and said there's something terrible wrong. And my oldest was staring at the wall and didn't know what day or time it was. So I knew he was not oriented ×3. That's catastrophic. Something's happening catastrophically. Yes. By the end of the night, he called me back and said he's in ICU, which I suspected that was going to happen. And I'm trying to get off of this island. I was in a Barbados, which doesn't have flights it was awful. So I finally get home, and in midair, my son texted me on probably a layover and said, they're now saying he's got cancer.
Yeah.
So I get into the room that night, and I find out he's got leukemia. Boy. It's acute myeloid leukemia. Yeah. My oldest son, who's 28. And that it's a form of cancer that 50% of people die from. So it's not one of the types. He is cured, by the way. That's the good news. Mm-hmm. But we didn't know he could be cured. There was a huge percentage that he wouldn't be. He was extremely ill, near death. So I also knew it brought us back to the United States. It brought me back into the territory of my sons. So now I'm starting to get resources, see? I'm back on homeland. Mm-hmm. I'm close to my sons, which means I have support. I'm now not so isolated. I knew I'd be part of this care team. I already did this with my late husband who died of cancer. So I also knew he wouldn't stay. My Max wouldn't stay because this is going to be constrictive. He likes autonomy, and he doesn't want to have anybody watching him, and he doesn't certainly want to be living his life at the hospital, which is what this is going to require. So sure enough, while my son does first round of chemotherapy, we come home, and we're in his apartment that night celebrating my birthday, and he says he has a headache. And with chemotherapy, nothing's a small thing, or with leukemia, it's not a small thing. So I decide to stay up that night and watch over him while he sleeps to make sure he's not having a setback. My ex sets his alarm to wake me up as if I could sleep, not understanding that I won't sleep. But I let him because I'm not going to speak up and tell him no. It would just cause more conflict. The alarm is about to go off, so I go into the bedroom where he's sleeping on an air mattress and to turn off the phone. And when I unlock it, it opens to a text message thread with a girlfriend that I knew existed. I was aware she existed. Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, she says to him, what I'm greatly concerned is not that, is that her son's care is going to eat up your half of her money. And then I knew this had not only been about cheating, but it was also about the money.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, I did the most super brave thing I could ever do. Is I didn't return the phone next to his bed or to his head where he had fallen asleep with it next to him. I set it out under the counter so he has to find it, which is really, for me, means, again, think a super compliant woman here. And then when he picks it up, he looks at me, and I say to him, I know. Meaning, I know what this is all about. Yes. I'm in the know. And then he lies and then moves away. And then literally within 24 hours, he packs and he leaves.
Yes.
Because the thing has been blown apart. I know now. And I'm in my son's territory. So I'm safe. I'm with family. So he then doesn't stay. And then we break up. And I did pay him off. It's how and he did sign the papers. And I did get the company. And I lost like 1/8 of the estate instead of a half. So I saved the bulk of it from him. So back to your question of the practical. Okay, so now let's put it in the timeline. It's 2019. My son is fighting cancer. He gets well in 2020. What happens in 2020? COVID. So just about the time he's well, and I now can start to see because I've been already doing all the precautions everybody else had to do in COVID. You have to do that with a leukemia patient. You wear a mask. You don't touch. You're very careful about what you're exposed to. No dogs, no bait. You know what I'm saying? You're living on all the same protocols that we live with a pandemic. So I've already been doing it for a year. COVID hits, and at that point he's well, and my sons tell me, you're too close, too invested. We need you to back up and get some space from us. So I go into COVID self-employed, living in a studio with no family because they've now asked for space in a town I don't know, alone. So I go into literally lockdown alone, in isolation.
Oh my gosh.
It was complete isolation for a year. So literally nobody and nothing but myself, except for a writers group online, and I saw my sons maybe once a week. So I was in complete isolation. So there would be times, this is how it looks, how healing looks, that I would get to the end of myself on something. And usually what I would do before would be reach out to 20 people and get their opinions. And then I would find some sort of subtle of the middle of trying to please them and please myself and do that.
Yes.
But I started to instead say, what is it that I want? And then I would also, here's the harder part. I would not only, though, not ask for anybody else's opinion, and I would kind of listen to what I wanted, but then I would work through the fear of what if I displeased somebody? And then said, okay, so if you do, so what? You're alone now. It can't get worse than this.
Yes.
You're already completely isolated, and you're learning to become your own friend.
Yes.
So here's what I discovered. I used to think I'm okay. The me is okay if we're okay. Because that's the way it was in my family, and it was the way in that marriage. But I learned that we are okay because I'm okay. And if we're not okay because I'm okay, then the we is unhealthy, but I'm going to still be okay.
So the we, just very quickly, is who? Who's the we in your mind?
The system, the family, the relationship, the whomever I'm interacting with. If I'm okay, but you and I are not okay, but I'm okay, then that tells me something about us, but maybe it doesn't necessarily tell me a whole lot about me if I know that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Okay, wait, hold on.
Okay.
I'm trying to make sense out of it, and I'm picturing it this way. But again, this is my sort of psychoanalytic mind working, which is you're alone for the first time in your life, and like, what a bitter, sweet ending to that relationship. It's tragic, but yet so necessary for it to happen this way, because you're pushed out of paradise, meaning you don't have this shared unconscious fantasy anymore, and you're confronted with aloneness, right?
While writing my own story.
Okay, that's great though. That's great.
Yeah,
now you're writing your own story.
Rewrote it 9 times.
That's wonderful, and that's where I was actually going to go to is you're pushed out and you're alone. But what I'm hearing is you're not actually alone. So when you ask me, does that make sense? I'm just telling you the sense that I made out of it, which was this is what we call object constancy or object permanence. In other words, you're not alone if you can hold in mind. And I think that's the we that you mentioned a moment ago, that you're not alone. Now, many people...
I never had a we in me.
Yes,
it was
exactly.
Always I only exist to the degree there's a we.
Yes.
Externally, not a we. There was no internal we.
That's internal. That's right.
That's a strong one. I wouldn't say there was none, but there was not a strong one.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that too, because oftentimes what I hear is there's nothing inside of like remember the narcissist is a completely empty vessel.
Yeah.
But none of us are really. I don't want to say none of us, but oftentimes we're not completely empty, but we're so guarded, so defended against. There are so many layers it's hard to tap into. So in your case, that was the whole thing, to please, to be compliant, to be the good wife, the good child, right?
Right.
Those are the layers that protected you or unfortunately prohibited you from getting into the me-we, the thing that you're describing right now. So so are you making sense? Again, the way that I heard it is in this period of your life, you're finally getting in touch with what's really this is a beautiful way, because we have to start pulling it together anyway. But this is the way that I see healing as well. Just so you know, I don't use the language that you are, but I call it, not that I call it, in my field we call it integration. In other words, there is this other side of you, Dr. Kerry, that's always been there, right?
Right.
But it's been split off, again, repressed, who knows, disavowed. And now you're coming into contact with this other side. And I think that's like the hug also that you mentioned. That's why I was like, give us an example for my listeners of what's the hug. The hug doesn't have to be a literal hug. It's an internal embrace, as you keep in mind that I'm not actually alone. Like I could try to make a claim that I'm all alone and I'm suffering, but I'm not actually alone.
Right. I had a really powerful moment that for me, it shifted everything. So I always tell stories, so that's the way I understand things. So I financially, I was in a place where I didn't have everything was tied up in land, so I didn't have any cash, and I owed an enormous amount of a bill I had to pay for the IRS, and I didn't have the cash to pay it. So I was panicking over that, that moment of distress, like, oh no, the world's collapsing. I could feel myself become extraordinarily
Yes.
dysregulated. And then I realized, I said to myself, what's the worst going to happen?
Yes.
So they penalize you with more money, and they make you pay interest. And in worst case, if they even put you in jail, which they're not going to because I'm going to be compliant, but even if they did that, I would not be annihilated. This is not going to destroy me. And in that moment, I found it's like, there me is. And she's always been there, and nothing can take that away.
Yes.
So to me, it was a very consolidating moment.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Carey, because this is why I appreciate talking to you, because integration came up at the very end. Object constancy, the symbolic hug, right? And now you just mentioned annihilation. And as I was listening to you, I was saying to myself, this is not annihilation anxiety. Like, she's not going to fall. Annihilation anxiety means you literally believe that you're going to fall to bits and pieces, like you're going to decompensate. Now, that level of disturbance actually is in some people, right? This is a psychotic level, and it's there, of course. But what I was hearing from you is, I don't think you're going to fall apart. It's not annihilation anxiety. And sure enough, then you use that word. So,
yeah.
listen,
No, I feared it. I feared
yeah,
it because
but a
I saw
fear
it.
is different. You see, but a fear is different
It
than
was held as a threat out there, and
yes.
shame and literal rejection. But it was. But I discovered that even in my isolation, there is a sense of self that can't be destroyed.
Yes. Well, thank you again. Listen, I want to wrap it up. I really appreciate you giving us so much of your time, Dr. Carey, and being so honest. I was trying to do it as we went along because I knew we were going to cover a lot of ground, but so many takeaways from this. And I'll probably I'll listen to it again and maybe even record another conclusion just to pull things together. But your honest view of all of this and the way you were able to speak so openly, and how we got to integration, which is healing, split or integrating, pulling back in parts of yourself that hadn't been there maybe ever in your life, but they were still in you. Yeah. All this was so valuable and helpful. So thank you again.
Yeah. In fact, even the reason I'm honest is because nobody's opinion can annihilate me.
Mm-hmm.
So even anyone's judgment of listening to the story, thinking how stupid I might have been, yeah, it was what it was, and I'm okay. You know?
And I'll just add one thing before we say goodbye. If anybody's listening and thinking this is a stupid story, by the way, that's what we call splitting again, right? That's back into the world of splitting. And that's something you need to examine, because that minimizes something that's so nuanced and rich into a simple word, which is stupid. There's still so much more to explore about this topic and related dynamics. If you're finding this discussion helpful, and you want to learn more about the various facets of narcissism and related personality organizations, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video clip. If you want to do an even deeper dive, check out my podcast. I go into far more detail there. Okay, until next time, take care of yourself. Bye for now.